Today, we'll be asking a question. Can we have sustainable development without addressing the key concerns of the youth in our country? Now, the recently released National Housing and Population Census figures reveal that 73.2% of the Ugandan population, which now stands at 45 million, are mainly young people. Now, the statistics show that 50.5% of the 45 million Ugandans are children between 0 to 17 years. And it shows that 22% are youth who are aged between 18 to 30 years. Now, this, according to statistics, two experts actually calls for deliberate efforts in terms of planning and addressing the concerns of the youth if we are to have sustainable development. Now, some of the key issues that the youth have been demanding for are well documented in this country, but we are seeing a new trend where youth are becoming vocal even on issues of governance, accountability, transparency. There are also emerging issues, including the digital space, where the youth are urging duty bearers, the government, to do everything possible to ensure that they are not left behind. So this evening, we are amplifying the voices of the youth on these issues as part of reflecting on the commemoration of the International Youth Day, which was recently held in Soroti District. Like I already indicated, join this discussion via the WhatsApp line, share your view. It could be a question or comment, and the panelists will respond to you. I have three panelists today. Let me introduce Mr. Alvin Mutebi, the Head of Research and Advocacy at the Anti-Corruption Coalition Uganda. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, good evening, Kenneth Rukwago. I'm very happy and honored to be part of this discussion tonight. And I'm always happy to feature on FM 90, great songs, great memories. That tagline speaks a lot to me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Also in studio, Ms. Monica Alip, the Digital and Innovations Coordinator at Dan Church Aid. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. I'm very glad to be part of this conversation today, and I'll be happy to speak on issues related to technology for the benefits of the youth, and looking forward to how the conversation progresses.
All right, we expect to be joined by Mr. Jacob Eyero, the chairperson of the National Youth Council, the man who made clear the demands of the youth during the commemoration of the International Youth Day in Soroti. He will be sharing with us some of the key issues that were in that particular commemoration. Let's begin with you, Alvin, very quickly. The youth already, like I stated from the statistics, form the biggest percentage of this population, the young people combined, those who are from 0 to 17 years and those who are 18 to 30 years. What does this tell you as a young person?
As a young person, this speaks a lot of volume. Actually, this speaks a lot of volume to us, and it also highlights aspects of potential, because I remember one time there is a political or presidential candidate who was saying that they are looking into the future, and if you're looking into the future and you have a young population, energetic, knowledge,able and groomed and grounded in the understanding and aspects of the country, I think that alone can show you that you're moving to the future steadily, and that alone can show you that you have a population to back on when it comes to development, when it comes to even preparing discussion that would lead to having a higher demand, or a higher position, or in sharing the international cake, leave alone the national cake now, but at the international level, you will have a population of people who are productive, a population of people who are knowledgeable, and a population of people who have stayed for some good time to understand where you're coming from, and then looking into the future. Because you look at what we have now as a country is that we have the Generation X, which would call our, they call themselves the BBCs, born before computers. And then we have the Generation Z, the Gen Zs. You find that there is a transfer of knowledge and understanding, and the cross-cutting of elements of understanding and perspectives, looking at the past, where we've been coming from, and then where we are, and then looking into the future. But you can't look into the future when you do not have a bearing in the demographics. So it is the demographic composition that gives you a projection that you will back on as a country to say, where we are going or where we are heading, we have a huge bargain internationally. And I believe the demographics we have as Uganda, actually they give us a very huge positive stand to back on. We just need to bring these young people together and we tell them that, look here, it is high time we owned the understanding of who we stand for as Uganda, and then we also need to have a meeting point on having discussions of the Uganda we want. So the Uganda we want, we cannot achieve it when we don't bring these young people or this demographic composition of the country to a discourse, to project, to look into the future, and then we shape the sustainable development that we really want to look out for. Right. Other than that, we will miss out. But the demographics actually are giving us the right time understanding, and they are giving us the right time opportunity to say that now Uganda is in safe hands because we have an energetic population, and good enough, some of the young people have gone to school, they have been exposed. However, we have homogenic kind of variations in the understanding of the young people. So you will find those ones in the informal sector, you will find those ones in the formal sector, you will find those ones in the ghetto, you find those ones middle class, then you will find those ones who are elite. So we just now have to see how we can harmonize. I think the UBOS statistics will actually give the planners of this country a perspective where we plan in how we can accommodate the homogenic kind of variations that exist in the demographics. Basically, the demographic that talks about the young people. And I believe by doing that, we are good to go as a country. All right, I'll be coming back to you to hear what the young people think. You interact with very many young people, especially now that they're at the fore of fighting against corruption, and you have a background in that regard. But also the issues that we are going to discuss, touch a little bit on the avenue they chose to use this time around when they were fighting against corruption, the digital space. And this brings in Monica. Monica, you come from a background of the digital space. When you look at the demographics, the figures that I've stated, what does this mean in terms of digital and innovation, looking at the quality of the population we have dominated mainly by young people?
Thank you. So I think it's rightful to actually acknowledge the fact that the young people are very aggressive when it comes to how they interact with technology, both constructively for benefits over economic growth or even for just casual interactions. And it's also important to acknowledge that Uganda as a country, we still have very large gaps when it comes to harmonizing the existing digital divides. So digital divides have over time gone ahead and changed. We now have very new digital divides different from what we had back then, which were around areas of maybe lack of infrastructure to sustain the internet connectivity, and maybe we didn't have machines back then like computers and laptops. But now we've shifted to a point where we actually have these things, but then we need to build the youth's capacity around how to effectively and productively make use of these things. So by the occurring that happen over time, it's evident that the youth know how to use this technology. But the problem is in how is it being moderated, both at national level, even at personal level. So most importantly, to be able to enhance and then have a strategy towards development, we need the youth to be, their capacity to be built around safely using digital spaces and what their rights online would be in regards to things like harassments and things like that. So yeah, I think the youth are aware, but then we need to structure their awareness, share information on what is available in terms of policies to use digital technology or even availability. And then overall also you look at things like the internet costs in Uganda, for example, still remain very expensive. Not everyone is going to be able to sustain a very good access to internet connectivity. So there's still room for improvement in terms of how accessibility is for things like internet or even the devices themselves.
All right. Let's look deeper into that particular situation that you talk about. Very many youth are in the digital spaces. do you think they're doing the right things there? Because the people who came up with these innovations had reasons why they're doing so. There's been a debate going on about what young people in Uganda do on digital spaces and what is actually being done in other countries. They tell you that in other countries, young people are making money. In Uganda, the digital spaces are largely being abused. What's your experience?
I think what I would say, I wouldn't really say in Uganda that digital spaces are being abused, but maybe at a country level, we are not yet at a point where we know how to actually fight for equity when it comes to how other countries benefit from the use of technology. For example, we need to acknowledge that these days, compared to back then, we have groups of people who are creatives, and in that sector we have people like influencers whom, if you look at their content, you would actually expect them to be making good money off using these platforms. But then they don't have the same kind of competitive advantage like the people who are out there making money from doing the same things like the youth here are doing, because probably we are not able to have conversations with those very big tech firms like, for example, Twitter, to make sure we're actually also fighting for that level of equity, evidence in an evidence-based kind of way, because probably we don't have structures where we have them moderating that kind of content we are putting out there and then giving us the same kind of, benefits that the rest are getting.
All right, I'll be getting back to you. Alvin, let's look at issues digital. One of the challenges that this country faces is unemployment, especially among the youth. And with the digital spaces, we are seeing some of these issues actually being addressed in other countries. For instance, jobs have been created, digital spaces. Young people who are tech-savvy able to communicate and execute, work that is actually brought in from abroad, through connectivity. What has been your experience? Why is it that in most cases when it comes to digital spaces, very many young people are saying they are being left behind? What could be the issue?
Yeah, Kenneth and the dear listeners, we have to understand the infrastructure and the parameters that relate with digital innovation, digital understanding and digital development in the country. You look at what we have in the sub-Saharan Africa space, you find that the knowledge and the technology that we have, we got it maybe from somewhere else. It is westernized. So we are kind of adopting to the technology that was brought to us. And then we also have the issue to do with the infrastructure, creating enablers, so that we open up the space for young people to join innovation towards digital technology and digital spaces. But you find that due to the fact that we have, I talked about the homogenic kind of composition that relates with the young people. You find that young people who are in the urban centers will be the ones whom you will find having digital devices. You'll find them having an understanding on the technology, and you find them using it every now and then. And then the innovation that have come from the young people, basically technological innovations, you find that they are not that much tangible, and they are just they are just trying to apply to the script already established by the innovators. For example, you will find that apparently there is an app that has been used by young people called TikTok. So you find that TikTok, somebody designed the app, and then our young people are just now rhyming with the script, creating content, putting out videos and something like that. But we really need now to get to the drawing board and dig into the knowledge and the understanding of these young people. And we say, look here, what unique proposition can we sell to the world that will make us unique and that will make these young people make a substantive contribution? For example, I will give an example of Kira Motors. They have they are making Ugandan cars, but you find that they are trying to tap into the knowledge of the young people and then the understanding, building the capacity and then the knowledge that young people can, apply in various sectors. For example, if you are to look at the economy, you find that digital innovation can contribute substantively to our economy if we tap into the space, if we tap into the resources. But you find that the rate of investment towards, sustaining digital knowledge and sustaining the digital economy or the digital market, it is not that much, sustainable. So it becomes a bit challenging to say that we are attracting this kind of population into this kind of sector, which sector lacks the infrastructure. For example, she was talking about connectivity, but it's not only connectivity alone. We look at issues to do with affordability, we look at issues to do with adaptability, and then we also look at issues to do with accessibility. You find that every now and then, Uganda has been talking about the backbone technology, connecting every Ugandan to technology and enablers, But you find that connectivity alone won't bring in returns. So investing in connectivity, what is the rate of return on investment in connectivity? So connectivity could come in if you bring in innovation, but you'd find that the generation we have that would maybe have access is the generation that I was talking about, the generation which was born before computers. So you'd find them in maybe digital technology to do with agricultural production, because that is what they have been seeing our grandfathers do. So somebody will have a farm and they will apply the technology there. Then you will find that few young people will tap into critical sectors of the economy using the digital appliances. Look at the spectrum development, which UCC is always talking about. But you will find that spectrum development and spectrum outlook of the country is having a lot of challenges, because the people who are managing our spectrum, they are not the majority in the population. And then the people who are enjoying the spectrum, they are the young people. So we really need to cut across and say, okay, we are developing innovations, but these innovations have to be tailored towards the understanding and the questions that young people are raising. We talk about boosting our education system. We talk about boosting our health sector. We're talking about boosting tourism. We're talking about boosting agriculture, because we believe those are sectors that are contributing heavily to our economy. But you find that the innovation, technology that applies to such sectors has not been enhanced, because the actors in those sectors, the key actors in those sectors, are not the majority as far as demographics are concerned. So we really need to address demographic dividends vis-a-vis the economy, to say, okay, which sectors can we tap into and connect to innovation and digital technology? And then we also have to do what I always call a trends analysis, to really analyze and break down areas which we think that they are very critical and they can contribute heavily. And then we also see the category of the young people who have made tremendous contributions in the sector, and we build their capacity. And after building their capacity, we now introduce new approaches that they can build on. But look at what we have as a country when it comes to innovation, where we've brought young people on board. You'd find that the young people are told, you go and do innovation related to agricultural production and value addition. But you find that the programming there will affect many of them, will be kicked out, because majority of them may not have the interest. But you've looked at programs like maybe the Presidential Initiative for Skilling the Boy and the Girl Child. But there you find that people are making soap, liquid soap. People are making dairy products. People are making, but elements and ideas that could, bring about innovation, that could bring about tapping into, technology and resources that can enhance their capacity. Such elements have not tapped into. Recently, I heard a speech from Honorable Musenero. And she was saying that we have a resource that we are not tapping into. We have younger scientists. We have younger innovators that are on the streets. Actually, there is a place in Kampala that she mentioned. I won't mention it here, but she was like, young people graduate and then they go to that place and they put all their knowledge in that place to make fake documentations, to make, but the knowledge that they apply, we put it to waste. We have innovators. We have people who have, innovated apps, technology and enablers in the system. But how do we now say that let's get these young innovators into feeding into the critical sectors of the economy, and then we do a trends analysis to see how their contributions are trending into boosting our economy, into enhancing service delivery, into even selling knowledge. We've seen young people actually going out of the country to sell their innovations. I have a friend who is in South Africa. Last time we even had an innovator, a young person who innovated the matibabu. It is an equipment that examines malaria to know that you have malaria. You don't have to go to the hospital and have an injection. But this guy, I don't know where he ended up with his innovation. Right. So that element, and lastly, Kenneth, is that the element of discouraging innovations from young people is also a big gap that we really need to address. There's the young person that I know who was trying to make a plane, but I don't know how government came to support that kind of person. So we really need to encourage young ideas, young innovation, however crooked they might look like. The example I would give is the Warner Brothers, right, the ones who made a plane. They started by a small thing, it crashed several times, but they were supported along the way. Nowadays, we enjoy flying out of the country just because of their ideas.
Monica, do you agree with Alvin's submission he makes? He says we have so many innovators, but the support seems to be little, and that could be affecting our ability to actually partake of the benefits of the digital space.
I would say I agree to some extent, and then maybe to some I may not fully agree. But in line with things to do with, you see, there's a lot of disruptions when it comes to technology. So you need to be able to pick your niche and then stick to it to be able to make progress, right? And it gets very overwhelming at some extent. So we need to track ourselves. I accept the part where he says we need to master our pattern as a country to be able to then tailor what our solutions would look like, right? So where are we supposed to start from when it comes from that? Let's say we already know that there's a capacity gap when it comes to digital skills, right? So why don't we start from there? Let us make sure we bring everyone to the same level when it comes to understanding of technology, and then most importantly, leverage on the already existing knowledge of experts. We already have experts in spaces like maybe machine learning, artificial intelligence. So let it be a phased approach, right? We are dealing with the people in the rural setting to enhance their digital skills on a very basic level, just as good as maybe just knowing how to use mobile money and things like that. Then let them make progress as we are also exhaustively using the already known experts in spaces of AI or ML. So somehow they'll meet somewhere there in between. But then I also like the fact that he mentioned something around acknowledging where we are falling short. And you can acknowledge that you're falling short, but document on it and actually have core action points when it comes to that. And that takes us back to having a very harmonized stakeholder engagement, all parties involved, the government bodies, the private sector, and then the non-profits, everyone to be able to, come together. But then, do we have designated communities of practice that are evidently focusing on, transitioning us when it comes to technology, speaking the same language, not just having multiple streams. For example, myself, I'm doing this for the youth. I'm trying to come up with a platform that can, enhance their employability. Someone else is also doing that. So coming up with communities of practice where we all converge and actually, mark down the actual problem areas would also be important. Then lastly, on what he said, I agree most importantly on the issue of localizing the approaches. We cannot just be hoping onto what, for example, the better developed countries are doing in line with technology, because we are not yet there. So it's important to localize our own solutions to be able to meet the demands and then bridge the digital divide gaps that we have.
All right, Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. We're joined by our third guest. When we return from the break, I will introduce him, but we also want to hear from him whether actually some of these issues to do with the digital spaces, digital devices, digital technology, featuring highly in their discussions at the National Youth Council, who are the voice of the youth in Uganda. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90. We continue after this break. Can we achieve that without addressing the key concerns of the youth? And one of the things we are looking at are the demands for the youth to actually ensure that their digital rights are enjoyed as a key enabler for sustainable development. I'm talking to Ms. Monica Alip, the Digital and Innovations Coordinator at Dan Church Aid. We have in studio Mr. Alvin Mutebi, the Head of Research and Advocacy at the Anti-Corruption Coalition, Uganda. And now we've been joined by Mr. Jacob Eyero, the Chairperson of the National Youth Council. Now, Jacob, you came on at a time when we were reflecting on the issues to do with digital. Of course, we are looking at it as one of the avenues where young people can actually address the challenge we have, which is unemployment. There's so many decent jobs in different platforms which are digital, and we want to hear from you. Are these issues actually featuring highly? Is it an issue that the National Youth Council has been able to address, and what kind of response are you getting from the government when it comes to these issues that we've been discussing here?
Thank you, Kenneth, and I want to thank all the guests in the house. My apologies for arriving late. When it rains in Kampala, it really rains. However, I want to just thank the colleagues for speaking to the topic. The issue of digital literacy, digital rights, digital needs, anything digitalizing in Uganda is having a spectrum of reflection and understanding. And I think that's where the first problem is. People understand it very differently. Some people understand digital rights to mean the right to say what you want on any digital platform. The others understand it as the right to have cheap internet. Others understand it as the right to have internet everywhere. So it's a very confusing area for many of the actors. And unfortunately for our country, the people who are leading the sectors that will be the major players come from an age where the most digital thing was holding a phone which you held at university. So the people who actually understand the dynamics of the age that is run digitally are young people who have no power, who have no platform, who do not have their own voice of decision-making on how government goes about something. At the National Youth Council, we have suffered the same situation. That when you're talking to government, digital rights have never surfaced. But digital skills are something that people have spoken about. When you talk about digital skills, the question is, who knows what digital skills are and where are they offered? And I think that young people today are confusing proper digital skills with what they call digital marketing, which is basically how much you can get people to follow what you're saying when you're saying it virtually. So that confusion still exists, and it has manifested strongly in our work with government, especially around advocacy or for things like cheaper internet to aid e-commerce, cheaper internet to aid the work of young people who just want space to host their innovations. That is something that's still confusing. But in my position, I think that we have learned a lot from especially the startup hubs across town. When you're talking about, there's one in the industrial area, there's Outbox, I think there's all these places, another one in Tinda, the Innovation Village. These places give you an idea of what a digital world can look like. And from my experience, it has not been a world where you simply innovate. It's also a world where you must learn what innovation can lead to and the process that is necessary. And quite frankly, it is just like the world here on the ground, except that this time everything is not done with someone that you're seeing on your face. If you're talking about a business idea, you generate it, you might have to talk to people who have already generated such ideas. If you're talking about where to establish your business, you need a host, either site, or there's a way they call it, where you host your app after you've created it, so venture capitalists can actually see that, oh, there's an idea here, what does it do? Like the plan, you called it the mobile app or something, that tests malaria. In Uganda, the government might not be interested in checking whether anyone has an app that tests malaria. But in Norway, there might be a necessity of that nature. And so there is a marketplace online where such things are hosted. And then venture capitalists, people who are out there and they already know that this is an emerging economic area, go and see what ideas are alive and they can invest in them to scale. So this is how the digital space works. And when I met these young people, they said, look, government is talking about how they are opening for us a digital space, an ICT hub. We don't need those things. What we need is cheap internet, and then government supporting us to have what they call credits to be able to host their apps and then keep them on that global market. Just like you have a stock exchange, that it doesn't matter how much money you have as a company, you have to list to be able to sell those shares and to be able to trade on the stock exchange. That's exactly what those young people are saying. And I could see the frustration, because the people that are running the policy arm of government are not as fast as the steps being taken in the digital world to ensure that we move ahead. We've done some work with our friends. I don't know if I should say his name online, but there's a young man, not very young, who is the son of a former premier in Uganda, that has been doing a lot of work around digitalization, not just for money, but for all things that you do as a country. And he's been running some background work around blockchains and Uganda getting into digital mainstreaming. For example, if you're talking about a business idea in Uganda, how does it run on a digital landscape? Can it compete on a digital landscape? So these are the things that are very important for me. And I don't think that we are doing enough as a country to listen to those voices. There used to be an annual conference, but that was also discouraged by the Bank of Uganda because they saw it as an urge to sabotage the financial order. Yet, in our opinion, it was an urge to keep up with the world and where it is going. And so I think those are things that are still really challenging to government. We might need a revolution of a second thought to get digital debate on the table in Parliament.
Monica, does this give you hope? You heard from the leader of the National Youth Council, who has been articulating these issues at that level with the policymakers. Yeah. Are you hopeful?
Yeah, at least there's a ray of hope in there. The fact that he acknowledges that there is a gap between how they understand digital technologies vis-a-vis how the younger people understand it. But then it leaves me with a question lingering. Is there an intentional strategy to actually do things around mindset change when it comes to the final policy makers, and then seeing how we can then foster adaptability when it comes to how we want to benefit from? Because if we're going to go in circles, we know they don't understand it, how then are we going to actually make sure that we change their mindsets and then let us into these rooms to actually guide these processes and intentionally advise on what's workable for the Ugandan context?
Alvin?
Yeah, to me, I would say that we really need to get to the drawing board because as my brother was trying to say, you know, Jacob, to me at times I look at the National Youth Council and I pity you people because it's really a huge task to connect perspectives of the people who do not have the policy decision-making power with the people who have the policy decision-making power. And then there is what we call a gap and a misconnectivity when it comes to sharing ideas. Because, I mean, you would, there's a time when you were making a presentation and you are like, we really need to see how now we tap into the knowledge and the resources that young people are having. But the young people will tell you, for us, we believe that this is a trend that we really need to take as a country moving forward, to enhance sustainable development. Because, they are seeing their fellow young people transitioning in technology, transitioning in understanding, transitioning in capacity to innovate.
Maybe it is not our time.
No.
Even the countries that we are looking at went through phases. They are now talking about, what are they calling it? The revolution where we are in terms of technology.
The industrial revolution.
They went through all those phases, agrarian, industrial, third generation.
But let me tell you one thing, Kenneth. Much as we are saying that it is not our time, we have the knowledge. But your priorities
could be different.
You cannot tell me that it is not my time when I have the knowledge. For example, you can't tell me that it is not your time to make fire when I have the knowledge to make fire. You will go away and I will make the fire because I have the knowledge and the capacity and the ability. Right. Much as we have limited resources, much as we have challenges, much as we have bottlenecks as young people in breaking through the ceiling, we've seen some young people break through. The only thing we need is that to have interconnectivity of dialogue, to say, look here, this is what we believe in as the young people. As far as maybe a discussion on innovation, digital and technology is concerned. And then we say, okay, as a country, what is our interest as far as maybe ICT and digital technology is concerned? And after addressing all those kind of things, and then we map out who are the key allies, who are the key people who really understand this sector. For example, I could give a very open example. There is a time when we discovered oil. And the president, when we were launching when we had the financial decision at the financial investment decision at Kororo, he was like, we did not have people with the knowledge in oil and gas. And we took these people to a school to really understand this sector before we could, take over, or before we could take on. And these young people, they went as young people. They are now mature people. They know what to do, and they were able to make right decisions in the sector. So I believe it is also another thing that we really need to look at.
All right.
So we can maybe call Jacob and his team, and we tell him, now we are tasking you to go and look out for those brilliant minds in the ICT technology innovation sector, the young people, and then we give them capacity. We prepare them and we align their knowledge and thinking and innovation to what we have as a country sector-wise. We say, okay, who are the best knowledge in ICT? And then we look at the sectors of the economy that are bringing great returns into the economy. Because me, as I speak, I say, our economy has to be touched to the demographics. But you look at the demographics, we have young people in Uganda.
Right.
But if you look at their contribution to the economy, they are not telling. You cannot tell me that you have 80% of the population whose contribution to the economy is only maybe 35%. So it is a discussion that we really need to look at and say, what are the interests of the young people? And then how do we tap into their interests to see that they make sustainable contributions? And with that, we will ensure sustainable development.
All right.
Because we are looking into the future, Kenneth.
All right. Now, let's try to look at one particular area where the young people have been dominant, the fight against corruption using the digital spaces. And I'll come to you, leveraging the power of the digital spaces. We saw the campaigns that have been going on social media, young people doing that everywhere. Can we look at that and say that's a contribution that young people are making through the digital space? Monica?
For me, in that regard, my interest would be knowledge of how to use it, right? Coming from how they know how to access these forms of technology and then maybe use it to send out whatever kind of content they want to send out there. For me, that is a good thing. The fact that they know how to make use of technology and they are aware of the several channels that they can use when they want to relay whatever information that they want to relay. For me, that speaks into the skill set, and then at least it shows that there is progress when it comes to how they perceive digitalization, and then their knowledge on digital skills overall.
All right. Very quickly, Jacob, President Yoweri, you spoke loudly about the issues, how the gaps that are missing, but President Yoweri Museveni has been talking about what they call the new age economy. Is it the new digital economy and things like that? It features highly in his speeches, and I think even at the celebration of the Youth Day, he did talk about some of those issues. But before you even bring in that, the issue of using digital spaces as campaign tools, transformative spaces to demand for rights, demand for action from the government. Very many people have been saying that the youth are doing the right thing, but the government has been reactionary. What would be your view there?
First of all, I think that we are very lucky that the youth have found a safe space where you can be an activist for a very long time without destroying property, and government cannot say you are becoming a public nuisance. It's an important space for national conversation, that it extends the bounds of where freedom can be applied, and therefore where a citizen can show their active citizenship without having to suffer tear gas and so on. And I think it's a new challenge for government that if you want to shut up someone, how do you shut them up? You have to hack their phone or switch off their internet. It's a very hard stance. But I think it's a necessary step that young people are beginning to change the platforms of conversation and interaction. If you cannot reach President Museveni in State House, which you will never reach probably, you can reach him every day on his social media handle until someone tells him, but Your Excellency, I think this person has tagged you too many times in one day. There is an issue here. And then you respond. So I think young people have redefined the idea of governance and citizen interaction. It's a platform that they're using and they need to use well. But I also want to say that we have seen across the globe young people organizing for what we call an attack, offense, and then they don't organize for the output of the offense. That you have come to a war, you have killed everybody, but you now do not know who is going to lead what is the next step. And that, for me, is a failure. I had very many of my personal friends with whom we don't share political opinion participate in the anti-corruption protests, went to prison, and I played my part in trying to get people out earlier. However, what I also noticed was that there was celebration when people came out of prison. Now, for some of us who have been in activism before, it got a bit confusing. What is the win here?
All right.
Is it that we have come out of prison or that we have sent them? So those are the confusing points for me.
All right.
However, my final word, I think that it's important that young people find their voice in every form and on every space and make sure that voice is done and clear. All right, it just has to remain respectful.
We have some comments coming in, and I'll give you an opportunity, Alvin, to also weigh in. We have a comment coming in from Benon Fred Twinamasco, who says, I think telecom companies need to reduce the cost of bundles to have more people using the internet and then use the created content as a platform for advertising. It is interesting that all these telecom companies use social media platforms for free but hike their bundle prices without wondering how Yahoo, X, and Google are keeping the telecom company content online for free. Low internet cost will go a great length to spur innovation. He says, thank you for the show. Then we have another comment, Okello Patrick Bonyo, listening in from Busega. He says, I don't think whether the government is planning for the Gen Z because the way policymakers behave and act is basically driving in the opposite lane. The Gen Z are not interested in the word. We came from far. The economy was totally down. No, they are seeing you as their leader, and they want answers for the current situation, not to Alwana. That word is for Gen X, not Gen Y. Those in power need to revolutionize their method of doing things, like training, then do on hands-on lessons. They strengthen areas where we have advantage over other countries, like tourism, agriculture, and later innovation, where government can support the innovators. NB, fight corruption to its core, otherwise the Gen Z will not take it anymore, as we witnessed in Kenya. We have another comment. Good evening, Kenneth. It is the fault of the government that has failed to support the innovator, more especially the youth. Let the government come up with a policy to help these people in terms of finance instead of putting tax on their work. That's Ephraim from Nampange. And then we have another comment. If the government wants to improve technology very fast, let it reduce the cost of the internet to enhance innovators, make research, and also put it in practice. That's another comment there from Ephraim. Well, gentlemen, we are soon coming to the end of the discussion. I'll come to you, Alvin, and then we'll go around the table for your reactions, but also closing remarks.
Yes. On the issue of sustaining accountability and fighting corruption, I think young people have come out clearly, and I think the use of media platforms and innovations is something that maybe the people in power did not think about. But as the economy grows, as the population grows, you will find that you will experience dynamics in understanding and how people do things. And to me, I think that now that the majority population is thinking in a different angle, you will find such innovations and you will find such perspectives coming into play. The only thing that we really need to do as a country is that we need to open up for such conversations when they show up. For example, you've seen various exhibitions on X and other social media platforms, trying to communicate on issues of governance, accountability, and everything. But to me, I've always said that let us have conversations that build into the future, into looking at building strong institutions, promoting accountability and transparency. Not this discussion of I call it personalizing poor service delivery. For example, there's a young person that I was discussing with, and I was like, if you go to the hospital and you find that there is no medicine in the hospital, you don't turn against the doctor, the in charge of the hospital. You turn against the system that is making drugs not available in the hospital. So if you're saying that you have an issue with maybe an institution, like maybe I'm giving an example, like an institution like Parliament, you don't turn against the heads of the institution, but you turn against the policies that are making the heads of that institution fail.
All right.
And how you communicate it matters, because if you communicate it in a way that it is looking like as if you're turning up in arms, then that's where we are going wrong as the young people, and that's the reason as to why we are being perceived as chaotic, misguided, unruly, because we lack submission in context that makes us relevant.
All right, Monica, let's hear from you, your closing remarks as we come to the end of this show.
From me, I think, Kenneth, you said something around the fact that maybe technology is not being prioritized. And I think if we begin looking at technology like an independent sector on its own, that's where the problem will come from. If we look at it like a catalyst, something that enhances already existing strategies, then adaptability and customizing it to fit our context would actually be very possible, and with all stakeholders, of course, involved.
How do we get to that point?
We get to that point through dialogues and actually making these policies known to us, the users of this technology, so that we are able then to see, review, and actually contribute to the decisions that are made when they're coming up with these policies.
All right, let's hear from you, Jacob, as we come to the end of this show.
My position is that government needs to begin to push the button in Uganda when it comes to trying to run the race of digital transformation. And what I mean is, if you're losing over 1 trillion in corruption annually, then you don't lose anything by putting 150 billion in innovations and supporting young people that are coming up with digitalized technological innovations and solutions. So I think, for me, number one, government, open up a fund, 100 billion, to try and catch up with the race of time that the world is already ahead of you on, and put that fund in the hands of private academic partnerships. Do not give it to a ministry. Give it to a board that is coming from 3 or 4 innovation hubs, including 3 or 4 academic institutions. Let them run. Let young people benefit from that. Lose that money as an investment.
All right, with that, we come to the end of Spectrum. Let me thank you, dear guests, for making time to be here, and you, the listeners, tuning in and contributing to this discussion. Tomorrow, 2 hours of analysis of the top events of the week during Spectrum Extra. Make a date with me then. Up next, we have the news in English with Miss Josephine Dagano. Thereafter, we'll continue with the Soul Train with BB Jr.